Because if it was 25 degrees,
we'd be
then
Buffalo
it would be
Kansas
miserable.
City, whatever's going on in Kansas City. Yeah, I mean, it's hard for Magic to play the game. But that's my – and first of all, I don't believe in jinxes or things like that. But, I mean, we try to explain to our son how unbelievably abnormal this is versus, you know, when I was a junior in high school. I mean, you held on for dear life until about March 10th with degrees. And I told him, and I wish I could find out if this was right or wrong. When I was a kid, when it started snowing, right, it never, like, went back to zero until, like, March. In other words, the snow just piled on.
Oh, yeah.
There was no melting process in the middle. It was like, okay.
Yeah, your lawn disappeared and didn't reappear.
And I tell people that when I was a elementary school boy, my least favorite month was March because, I wasn't in the college basketball yet. And that was the month my mother was like, you can't go outside. It's mud season. See, snow season was fine because you had snow pants, and then spring, but not mud season. There was no answer for mud season. Had to stay in March. Couldn't do anything.
I remember when I was a kid. Now that you mention that, when I was a kid, the bicycle went up in the garage attic in about December and didn't come down from the garage attic until March.
All right.
So there was no riding the bikes all that time. You waited for the first day when you could get back on the bike.
That's why, like 2 days ago, it was such a pleasant day. I'm like, I think it was January 10th or the 11th. I'm like, and then, like you said, I step outside, and yes, it's raining, so be careful out there. But it's not bitter cold. It's like an April rain. So
yeah, when I walked out this morning up in Boston Spa, it was between a mist and a sprinkle. But as I walked out, I thought, oh, is this going to be dangerous? And I turned the car on. The temperature was 38.
It's like an April rain.
Surprisingly, as I drove down here, by the time I got down here, it was 45. Who knew that we were in the balmy South where there would be a 7-degree difference between Boston and Spa?
And just a quick note, because every tell you a story once. I didn't know him very well, but we played golf at the same place, and he came up and introduced myself, and he apparently went to school with Denise, who, if you don't know, that's my wife, and they were classmates, and he says, and so then we're out one night, and he sees her, goes, I never have to worry, Denise, what's going on in your life. Anthony just tells us all on the TV. Because I know exactly what's going on. But going to Australia on Tuesday, and I got lucky, Seth. I had to change a flight, but there is racing at Flemington, which is their premier course, one day. And I have to take a 6 a.m. flight to get down to Flemington for racing, but I am determined to see that's where they run the Melbourne Cup. But they have these 2 days in January. And I've talked to Seth off the air before. This is their summer. I don't get it, but they're running on the 13th, so the racing's over. But the 20th. So I have to get to Flemington on one day to see top flight racing in Australia. I'm going to see the Open and some other stuff. But we're going to Australia. Then my wife had the brainy solution that I should do the Handicappers Report via Zoom, which would be a 1 a.m. kickoff. And for those who don't know Brian Nadeau on my schedule, that is not a problem. 1 a.m. So, are you a later too? Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, absolutely.
Now okay? So you're are you a very later? Like, is one about the?
I have changed, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, 2 or 3 was probably
okay
in my wheelhouse for hitting.
I didn't know it was that late for you because you have a morning gig. I was like, that's pretty good. I am going. Now that Anthony's a young adult, I am going back that way because I do not have a 6:04 a.m. alarm anymore. So, but last week, Seth, is for me, a public handicapper, the perfect day. We upset the first race, the odds-on favorite that I thought. So it's 2160. So I'm in the black. I go for 8. But I had 8 swings, so we're now at plus 97.68.
I had a crazy day yesterday.
I had you on the.
I started
as per usual. My Friday day was set.
I started Aqueduct with a $21 horse, and so it was a nice start there. And then added, I think, an $8 horse during the day, so a nice ROI there. And then on the flip side, I was 7 for 9 at Gulfstream Park, but I don't know if any of them were over 5 or there was maybe a $6 horse.
I was in the midst. It was mid to late horse. You were telling a story that you had a thought on a bomb in the mix, and it was there like
there was
incredibly long shot. You were
that was
talking-
at Oaklawn, I think. Yeah, no, it
Mid
was
to late day.
It was at
of your show,
Oaklawn
of your
because
show.
it was an Arkansas-bred maiden race. And I said
Who
to
knew?
people, you throw darts, but I said to people, if you watch enough, I like to look at the breeding on those maiden races. But the state-bred races, you have to parse out because the sires aren't the national sires. And if you go to Blood Horse, they'll parse it out by the states. So you can go look at the top 10 list. And there was a good Arkansas-bred sire of a runner that had a little bit of breeding overall, I thought, and went off at 15-1 on the morning line, but went off at, I want to say 36-1.
I was going to say 40. I heard you talking.
It might have been 4.
Like,
it might
I
have
was
eventually gone up because it was $22 to place and $16 to show. And it ran second behind the favorite, but it kicked up the exact at a big number. And so, yeah, it was. And again, that's another one of those we're tucked in your pocket. If you go to Blood Horse,
well, I think you were telling me that
the state-bred
I think
sires.
your line was $6 across the board would have netted you. So you did the math for the $2 across the board.
Yeah, $6.
$6.
You got what,
That's
35? Something. Yeah,
that was where I was because it's Friday afternoon. It's almost always Friday. It's always.
Yeah, but those Arkansas bred races are.
I understand. Like New York bred races 40 years ago.
And news this week that came out in your wheelhouse because you're always talking about inflation and purses and whatnot. Kentucky Derby this week announcing they have jacked the purse up $5 million for the Derby now. And it sounds like in the week leading up to the Derby, they've kicked up some of those as well.
And that's great. My thought always was that was where the Preakness got hurt. The Preakness should have been like a 3. They had to find a way to make it, and now they're even farther behind the Derby. But listen, I mean, it's the biggest race in the world for eyeballs. So $5 million. Oh my goodness.
That's makes it.
Is that shoulder to shoulder then with the Breeders' Cup Classic? Is that the Breeders' Cup Classic?
It becomes the second. The purse now puts the Derby closest to the $6 million Breeders' Cup Classic as the richest current race in North America. So, second richest race in the country.
Which it should be.
Yeah. All right, ready to jump in?
I am. I'm like I said, it's the 2-year mark, and I am starting to sweat it. So let's go.
I'm going to look at Gulfstream a little bit later on, but we'll kick things off with Aqueduct again, as I say. The lucky Saturday, the 13th card kicks off in the opener. Oh, that pick 5 yesterday. Yeah, I put a little ticket out on Twitter because, man, $117,000 carryover in the pick 5. They were sure to send it in, and they did. Well over $750,000. And then the longest price on the board hits the first leg, and I have the next 4. Well, the pick 4 was okay, but that was frustrating. But today there is a pick 6 carryover still. They hit the pick 5
right?
today, but they hit the pick 5 yesterday. But a pick 6 carryover today at Aqueduct. The opener today, we're looking at maiden specials going 3/4 of a mile.
And I don't follow it, but I would say since the inception of the pick 5 in New York, maybe 10 days. I don't think 20. I don't think 30. There's been a carryover. It's almost a once a year type thing. And even odder, seems like it's been at Aqueduct the most times it's not something I follow. So let me get on and let's see if we can get the $20 winner in the first race right off the bat. 265, ladies and gentlemen, for me. And True Connection is a horse that I don't think I would ever sink my teeth into a first time starter, except for the fact that I think the price is very attractive in a field. And that's the case with True Connection, who goes out for Jim Ryerson. This horse is working, for me, quite well for a debut. Dylan Davis, plus sign, double-digit odds on the morning line. I said, like last week, a little suspicious of the odds-on favorite in the first race. If you watched the races yesterday, I don't talk about bias very often to our audience because I think it's the most subjective thing in racing, and I am a big believer. It does affect my handicapping strongly. I thought Inside was rough yesterday, and it helped me in the first race because if you watched the first race yesterday, if you ever thought there was bias, I think the first race is a good example where it appeared as if the favorite was loose, comfortable on the front end, on the rail. Might have looked like a jiggy jog moment. And then, Seth, it seemed as if they were running in quicksand and barely were able to run third. Really, I thought hit the board based on how much better they were than the field that I thought was going to get swallowed up and run fifth, but did regather to run third. So True Connection, Dylan Davis, I'm going to take a flyer here in the opener. For second, Have You Heard? Gets Lasix for the first time, running as a 3-year-old. Also, Seth, you're very forward ahead on the pedigrees. One of the few that I got right, and it was just luckily that I don't know if it was you or somebody else, because it was a long time ago. Larry Jones was going to come on the set after Handicappers Report, and he said to me, so matter-of-factly, he had to get a grade 1 for hard spun. So he goes, I can run in the King's Bishop, or I could run in the Secretariat. King's Bishop, 7/8 dirt. Secretariat, 10 furlongs turf. He was absolutely, I'm winning either one I want to run in. His point to me was he was going to be a brilliant overall stallion. And Larry Jones was 100% right about hard spun. And then Ambition, 5-2 in the morning line first here. I'll take the 10-1 on top. 265 in the opener.
Yeah, he had that good, really diverse and good year in that year of a solid 3-year-old crop. Yeah.
I said, not counting Secretariat's group, for me, it's funny, the 87 group, the 97 group, and the 07 group of 3-year-olds are the 3 best outside of the Secretariat group, where you literally had 5 deep on stallions. I think he once told me he was the only one that had beaten Street Sense twice. Hard spot. So,
second race at Aqueduct today, starter allowance types going 7 furlongs.
I'm 1A, 2, and 7. I'm on the outside. The 1A has the far outside post position. David Jacobson has an entry. I could tell you, I could see both of them going. And Seth, I've decided now that Anthony could drive himself to school so I can sleep. I am going to do a starter allowance spreadsheet, because I have maintained that these lower level claiming horses, when they run in them, have very little chance. And I just think of that anecdotally. Now I'm going to delve into, and this race will be in it, these starter allowance races in New York. Because I've said it before, Seth and I didn't grow up. There were no starter allowance races until about 7 years ago in New York. There were none. When I used to read handicapping books, Seth, and they talked about them, I didn't know what they were talking about because I had never seen them. But President Z comes out of a restricted 3L. This is a significant, I don't say this very often, class jump, I believe, in New York now. I have an entry. I got a little hurt on the odds, but David Jacobson, to me, has completely found his sea legs since coming back for the second time. And maybe we'll get a price on an entry, 1A, the Austria Cantheros. For a second, the other side of the starting gate, Natural Harbor, Linda Rice's train. Now, this is an example. This is a horse who clearly fits at this level. Well, it's 9-5. It's Linda Rice. You're on the inside. Maybe good, maybe not. And for third, Bayou Spirit, the other Linda Rice horse, 1A, 2, and 7. Because I've come to learn that I think the starter allowance races in New York are part of the backbone of the daily cards. They're not going away. This is a race that, for whatever reason, Naira didn't have them for the first 40 years, 50 years for me. They're here to stay. And
for folks, I mean, you kind of stated it, but you alluded to it certainly here. For folks who aren't familiar with starter allowance, maybe new to the game, you look at the conditions. These are horses which have started for a claiming price of $50,000 or less. This field is pretty competitive on that. But a lot of times you look, particularly at other tracks, lower levels, and you look down, you want to get as close to that price as possible. Some won't be close at all. And you're right, most of the time they're just outclassed. But it's worth, that's one of those where it's definitely worth reading the condition and kind of looking a little bit deeper.
And I have to say, it's interesting because no one's around anymore, but it is a great condition for the horsemen. You always wonder, like, they were knocking on the door going, listen, we'd like this type of condition where I don't want to run a claiming race. I want to keep the horse. But it's here.
Third race today, state-bred maiden claimers going the 1-turn mile.
For me, and I know there's an 8-5 shot on the morning line. I thought this was 5 or 6 deep here. I'm 518 area code. I took the Splendid One for Mark Henning, our friend. First time in for a tag. And I was surprised that this horse has run well on dirt before, has run well going a mile out of Aqueduct before. I think this is a major player in the race over an 8-5 versus 4-1. And Seth, I have to tell you, because I have been dialed into your thoughts on the power of the buyer speed figures, which I was slow to come around to. And Shelley, who I'll get to in a second, does not stick out. And I'll get to Shelley in a second. My point, the Splendid One fits in this race, dropping in for a tag. I actually think I have an edge on a $10 horse. Now to Shelley. Shelley's stick out buyer speed figure, which I presume, Seth, is the 8-5 reason, because the 258s don't warrant 8-5. Is it off the turf at Saratoga? Seth's famous 1 mile races that we had so many because they off the turf. I thought they were races that had a very singular type flow. They weren't like 7 furlong races. They weren't like 9 furlong races. I've always maintained I wish they would have stayed on the head-on shot for like 5 more seconds. But my point is, I'm not fully invested in the 68 buyer speed figure on the off the turf going a mile at Saratoga. And then for third, Montauk Mystique on the outside. And the other thing I've always said, Seth, and I do believe this wholeheartedly, and I don't have to do a study. When moisture is in the racetrack and horses run some of their best figs, it's a toss for me. It's a toss, because I'm not debasing that he ran a 68, but I want to see him do it on a clear, fast racetrack, etc. type thing. Because you've seen horses run incredible buyer speed figures when there's moisture in the racetrack that they don't seem to repeat. And I think they're good bet against.
Fourth race this afternoon. It does kick off that pick 6, and there's $69,000 in the carryover. Fourth race today, State Bred Main Specials, going a mile.
This is a stab for me, because I think we're going to get even better than 15-1, but it's a stab. It's not like I'm 7-3-1 and Just Step on It gets Lasix now as a 3-year-old. Ran at Del Mar in the summer, I thought was fine on debut. Then came back in December at Del Mar, got claimed as in New York. I think the race at Parks is sneaky. I think we're going to get a very big price on Just Step on It. And I'm, throwing something against the wall. I think this is one bet I would make, Seth. Whatever the odds are, because I can't see this horse getting better, I think it's going to run better than odds, and those are the horses I like. So Just Step on It, a wild one in the fourth. For second, Liberty Central, an offspring of Central Banker. One of the few times with stallions I was close to the front of the bus on realizing the son of Spicetown was solid. Even its poor stallion race at almost 30-1 was good. And for third, number 1, 30-1 and the debut won't be near that price today. 7-3-1 in what I think is a wide open fourth race. Watch Quiet Wisdom win by a pole, 7-3-1.
Yeah, your pick. It's always funny when you see somebody buy a New York bred wind up in California. Then it gets claimed they come east and they race in Parks. But I will say, and I think Louis Linder, I think, is a Parks-based. Yeah, because this one worked out of Parks too. The Parks horses, I've said the last couple of weeks, normally, most of the year, I'm not that thrilled with Parks shippers coming to New York, but this time of year, and the last couple of weeks, they've done okay. Butch Reed had won the stake a couple of weeks ago.
This is the 26th or 27th winter, continually, but through winters at Capitol. And I think you're exactly right. I noticed years ago, wintertime, their horses would come over. Now, if you remember, in the old days, they could run 7/8 at Parks, but they could only run 6 in New York. And they were quite pay attention.
Fifth race this afternoon, conditional claimers. Again, the 1-turn mile.
Intrigues me, this race also. Good luck to the horizontals today. 3-1-5, in spite of trainer I think is a major player in here. First off, the Linda Royce claim. Now, that claim was Veterans Day, ladies and gentlemen. So this horse has been in Greg DePrima's barn for long enough. But I think this on balance is everybody's in it to win it in here. And I'll take In Spite of Trainer, who has been in the exacta 4 out of 5 races at the Big A. For second, number 1, Rock the Weekend. Big race in the most recent effort. Now, the Beyer speed figure comes out of a 6.5 furlong race. Little question mark sometimes. But if you go back 3 races, got the same figure going a mile, which we're going today. I'm on the inside. See how the track plays today. Complete agenda. Second off the claim for Dylan Davis is my third pick. 3-1-5. And I've said this before, Seth. It's that type of race in the middle of all the horizontals. I don't know how you get through it without going 4 or 5 deep. I mean, and how many races can you do that?
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, some stakes action in the Busanda, but a little bit later on, we'll also shift and look at some Gulfstream. So plenty still to go. Stay tuned. The Handicappers Report will continue.
Is it outside? They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Bob. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Welcome back to the Handicappers Report. Seth Merrow, Anthony Mormino. We are now looking at Aqueduct, and again, a little bit later on Gulfstream, but kicking back in with race 6, as I said earlier, stakes action in the Busanda, $100,000 for 3-year-old fillies going 1.1 miles.
And I don't know if it was Busanda or Busher that was Mike Veach favorite.
Oh, I don't know.
One of those two, because they were, you ever look up their lifetime records? These races might be run in the wintertime. We might not think so much, but they were one of the titans of the turf 50, 60, 70 years ago. The Busanda, one of the most formful on record of, horses winning. A lot of favorites the last 7, 8 years have won it. When I was a junior or senior in high school, I think there was that modern people will remember Calvin Burrell going after Javier Castellano in the Breeders' Cup. There was a moment like that, but in the Busanda when I was like a junior or senior, but the one jock flattened him like a one-punch knockout right at the weigh-in. Just suckered him and knocked him right out in the Busanda. 4-5-2. It's been a formful race. A lot of favorites the last 8, 10 years, but I'm taking Class Act. First time versus winners. Do not worry about that. That is common in the way the game is played today, common in the winter. You break the maiden, you go right to stakes action. It's not the hurdle it was 30, 40 years ago. The offspring of Street Sense. I've already won going. My pick has already won going 9 furlongs at Aqueduct. 6-1 on the morning line. I'll take Class Act to win the Busanda. For second, number 5, Princess Mayfair, going out second time versus winners. This is the horse that's a fly in the ointment. Why? I have Flatterer on the grandsire on the top side, Spicetown on the bottom, which I'm okay with. First time dirt after 3 races on the synthetic at Woodbine. And for third, Shimmering Allure, 4-5 in your heart for Ken McPeak. Won the Tempted, runner-up, in the Demoiselle. 4-5-2 for me, an upset in the Busanda.
State bred allowance winners, New York bred non-winners have won. Other than in the 7th race, they'll go 6.5 furlongs.
Boy, what a card for the horizontal people, if you ask me. 5-2-7, quick to accuse, another 6-1 shot for me. Horatio DePaz runner nearly got through this condition 2 races back, and then at a mile was the beaten favorite, most essentially off that race, but now cuts back to 6.5. I think that mile race will help in the foundation. For a second, the deuce going out for Chris Engelhart was sharp in the mud at Finger Lakes, but before that was sharp, going 5.5 on a fast track. And then Kid Billy, an offspring of Flatter, going out for Bill Mott. Brilliant on debut, going 7/8 a year ago, 5-2-7.
Kid Billy going out for Dreammaker, so some local connections there. Good luck. 8th race this afternoon, allowance non-winners of one other than, again, the popular today, 1 turn mile.
3-8-11. You know, and that's one of the things, Seth, that when they disperse, here's another one. When the in a dirt track, what did that disappear like 6 years ago? Seems like
Was it that long?
yesterday.
Yeah,
I think it
like, I
is.
would have said about 2 years ago.
We basically ran 6 furlongs and a mile 70 yards, almost the entire card. But this mile distance, and that's why I believe the Wilson Chute came back. Trainers love it. It fits more horses. So 3-8-11 expected value. Chad Brown. I'm happy to sign up for 5-1 right now in the 4th career start. First start since the Bay Shore. I've told you before, I don't care about layoffs anymore. For a second, number 8, Linda Rice takes over from Todd Pletcher. First start since June. Don't care. And for third, Whittington Park, Jeremiah Engelhart, who I have to tell you, I was surprised at his brilliant year in 2023. And I know Jeremiah personally. I just flew under the radar for me. 3-8-11.
Going out for Marshall Graham and 10. I don't know. I think that's a new combo. I think. I have to check that out.
I told you Marshall was the first person I saw at the Breeders' Cup this year,
Yeah,
right?
he said that.
Just the
In
two of us.
Morning, right?
Very early morning. It's just the two of us. He was shocked that I remembered him, but that's thanks to Seth's show because
Yeah,
That's how I met him.
one of my favorite guests.
understandably, I
Yeah.
mean, I can listen. He's one of those guys, along with Paul Matisse. I could sit there and listen to them just talk for 75 minutes. I mean, they're so bright.
I mean, he's like kind of does a jack of all trades in the game. He's a handicapper. He's a
Steeplechase.
owner. He plays in the handicapping tournaments, and yeah, it's really interesting to listen to.
Sharp
Ninth.
man.
Oh, and you're right. You mentioned steeplechase. I'm going to be interested to see if he and Sean Clancy actually win because I think Awakened has a legit chance. 9th race today at Aqueduct State Bred Maiden Specials, going a mile.
Boy, what a card for you folks out there. 8-5-2. I know it's the middle of January, but it's a fun card to me from a handicapper standpoint. Ray Handel, I tell you, I met Ray last 2 weeks. I met him.
Yeah, nice guy. I've had him on the show.
Very nice guy, young guy, outgoing. Dixie Farrell gets my pick, gets Lasix today. I like the most recent effort going 9, now shortens back up to the 1-turn mile, the offspring of American Pharaoh. For second, Vinsanto going out for Bruce Brown off of a second place, 9 furlong, 2-turn race, shortens back up to a mile. And then for third, number 2. So 8-5-2 in the finale. And I hope the weather is fair in New York because I think from a betting standpoint and a handicapping standpoint, this is a rock solid card. I will be very interested to see how the day goes for the bettors, because I think there's going to be some $12 and $14 horses. And when I say some, I think like 5, and it'd be interesting to see how you parse together a card for the horizontals with those.
Yeah, it does look like it has the potential to be a fun.
I don't know if you looked at it yet, but I don't think there's any free squares, irrespective of the morning line. I don't think there's any free squares on the card, even including the Busanda. I mean, how do you take a 3-year-old filly and single her?
Yeah. I mentioned Sean Clancy.
Yes.
I'm guessing, but I think it's probably a pretty good guess. I would think he would be the first person that would win a media eclipse and an owner, have one of his horses win an eclipse award.
Just
as
absolutely.
well, which would be a crazy double. And I think, like I say, his steeplechase runner, I think, is very live in that category.
You would know.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Gulfstream Park on a Saturday afternoon. So stay tuned.
Now, I would have thought being
And they're off in the Pegasus World Cup. They're off in the Fountain of Youth stage. And they're off in the Curlin Florida Derby. Forte wins. White Arborio almost home.
And Nyquist is still unbeaten. Orb and John Velasquez have won the Florida Derby.
Barbaro wins.
And there you have it. Northern Dancer will be the winner of the Florida Derby.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Handicappers Report alongside Seth Merrow. I'm Anthony Mormino. So Seth went home yesterday off the air, but I left the network on, and I heard our friend Tony Kalo. I was in a different room,
Doing a great job.
and I wasn't even thinking about horse racing. I was thinking about dinner, and I heard his voice, and I said, Turfway Park must be on my television in the family room. I went around out of the kitchen, and there it was. His voice is so distinct.
Have him on talking a little Turfway.
Absolutely.
Right after start, he tweeted out a couple times, "Boy, it's tough. It's tough." And I'm wondering if that plays into nighttime. You just have to readjust. But I'll have him on.
Well, I'll say one thing. It's nighttime, but their shot is brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes across on TV. Great. Turning our attention to warmer climes. 5 furlongs on the synthetic, kicking off maiden claimers at Gulfstream, 12:10.
I'm 8, 4, 7, and 6. You have heard me talk about Kozan before as a win early sire. Didn't get it done in the debut effort, but I thought the debut was okay. Had a little trouble. There's a sibling called, you have Kozan on top. The dam produced a sibling called Baby Steps. That one's in a Gulfstream Park stake tomorrow and started the career 5, 4, and 1 out on the West Coast. So won the third start. I thought there was win early there. Kozan last year, from January 1st to December 31st, the stats are out, and 71 first-time starters, 12 wins, 11 seconds, 6 thirds. So 23 exacta finishes out of 71 first-time starters. So I'll take a little shot with Kozan on the Kozan offspring on top. Number 4, Sand Wedge. Kozan, second-time starter, going maiden special weight to maiden claiming. I thought this one, again, had a little bit of breeding that was interesting, particularly on the sire side of things. Trainer, a little light on the win end at the meet, but overall is a high percentage guy that is worth paying attention to. So at 8-1, I think Sand Wedge, very playable and scored. Irad Ortiz on board this one, coming down from Woodbine. And has tried the synthetic at Woodbine and run well. And it seems like, over the past couple of seasons, those Woodbine shippers going synthetic to synthetic down to Gulfstream have proven to be competitive. And I think this one will add to that in the opener at Gulfstream, 8, 4, 7, and 6.
Staying on the synthetic at Gulfstream, going 5.5 in race number 2. Claimers in for 10.
6, 3, 7, and 11. And I mentioned the horses coming down from Woodbine and Marty Drexler. A successful trainer up in Woodbine, and he's been bringing horses down the past couple of seasons to Woodbine and doing so very nicely. Now, it's interesting. I looked the past couple of years. Marty Drexler, the past couple of years, about the same number of starters at the Gulfstream Park Championship meet. Last year, 66 starters, 14 wins, 9 seconds. 2 years ago, 64 starters, 11 wins, 12 seconds. So he does very well. But that noted, it gets out to a little bit of a slow start. Last year, in his first 17 starters, only had 1 winner. 2 years ago, it was a little bit better, 15 starters, the first 15, going into January a little bit, a couple of wins, 3 seconds and 5 thirds. So again, it seems like it takes him a little bit, and we're still in that early period. But I thought this horse, Neophyte, with a decent little Gulfstream record overall, I'm going to look for Marty Drexler to get one of those good early season performances out of this one at 8-1 with Tyler Gaffalione on board. Executive search going out for Victor Barboza off the claim. He is very, very good off the claim. According to the Racing Form stats, 50%. He's a coin flip, so 6-1 looks generous. And then X-Prompt in the third spot. Trainer, limited starters, but a little bit of a lighter percentage. But third start off a layoff, and I think at this level is going to fit okay and be interesting. So if this one does wind up 6-1, worth a look certainly. In the second, 6-3, 7-11.
On to the third, we get to the dirt for the first time. Claimers in for 35, racing 7/8.
4, 7, 5, and 6. Celestial Gaze. Again, kind of a successful trainer that does very well first off the claim, and this is a first off the claim runner. Second off a layoff, laid off from June until December. And again, ran an okay race in the return, was 5th, but by less than a couple of lengths. You go down the page, though, there are some very good numbers. So with that one under the belt, first off the claim for a good first off the claim trainer, there's the potential to move forward. And if we get back to one of those better numbers, I will say this is the kind that scares me, though, particularly on the top end. You have Irad Ortiz on board. Hopefully, he can mitigate this a little bit. But look down at the trouble lines. Last time, hop start, 2 back, bumped, 4 back, off a bit slow. You continue down, bumped. When you see that many in the trouble line, you get the feeling that maybe they make their own trouble a little bit. But as I say, maybe Irad Ortiz helps to mitigate that, although he didn't last time. But we'll see. I'm going to use this one on top with some trepidation. Willie Boy in the second spot steps out of a stakes try over at Tampa last time. But I think for Melanie Giddings will be a competitor in with this particular bunch, and American Pure in the third spot. Tossed in a clunker last time against maybe a touch better. That was off a long layoff, though, and came into that with a bullet workout. So I'm thinking the horse might be a little bit better than we saw last time, and I'm hoping with that one under the belt we get to a better performance. In the third, 4, 7, 5, and 6.
Fourth, back to the synthetic, 5 furlongs, claimers 25.
7, 3, 6, and 2. I'm going to put on the payroll on top. Last time out, a nice win. This trainer, a very limited sample, but does okay going back-to-back in races. Again, limited sample, but does it over 50% of the time. It's tough to win back-to-back, but this one did it in relatively similar company last time. Johnny V on board that day, back on board again today. I'll look for that, her to go back-to-back. Second slot, we'll look at Admiral Hopper. The number 3 horse, Tyler Gaffalione, jumps on board this runner, who has been off the better part of a year, going out for Safi Joseph. That's the big concern, the layoff. But workouts seem to indicate the horse is going to come back with a little bit of oomph and does come back at a little bit of a reduced rate. So that may mitigate the layoff. And then Nicky Khan in the third spot. This one also a layoff, a little bit more palatable, though. September was when last seen. Comes back for, again, a trainer who does okay. And Irad Ortiz is attracted. That attracted my attention as well. In the fourth, 7, 3, 6, and 2.
Fifth race, our first turf contest, starter optional, going a mile.
6, 2, 4, and 5. I will put Running with Scissors on top. Tried the synthetic last time. Ran okay. The 2 starts on the turf before that, though, were pretty good and maybe a little bit better. I think any of those efforts, though, probably put this horse right in the thick of the conversation today in a race that amongst the top 3 or 4, I think is very competitive. But you get Irad Ortiz, and again, a horse that's in some pretty good form. I'll tilt in this direction. Alley Oop John hasn't been seen since May. Last seen up at Woodbine. Again, it's a Marty Drexler horse, one of those runners that last year, towards the end of the championship meet, got Marty Drexler a couple of wins. So the return to Gulfstream is notable. Tyler Gaffalione, as I say, steps on board. And Tatanka in the third spot. Owner-trainer Mike Maker has this one. Plenty of early speed. Might try a theft on the front end, and I don't think that's out of the question in with this bunch in the fifth. 6-2, 4 and 5.
One more before break. Race number 6. 3-year-olds, maiden special weights on the dirt, going 6.
6, 5, 3, and 8 for me. The number 6, Coal Front, interesting sire of win early types. Last year, these are interesting numbers. Didn't have a lot of first-time starters, 25, 5 wins, 4 seconds, and a third. So 9 exacta finishes out of 25 first-time starters. Dan produced a sibling called Beautiful Grace that won in starts 3 and 4. Another sibling called Levita Sophia won the second career start. And then I will mention there was another sibling that took a number of starts to win, took 8 starts to win. And I only mentioned that because the horse's name, the sibling's name was Lab Rat. And you gotta love that coming out of Skinner Box. And if you don't know, look it up on the psychology side of things. So this one, though, I think with a little bit of breeding top and bottom, Luis Saez on board, George Weaver can have him ready. 10-1, we'll go with number 6 in the top spot. Second, we'll look at Turn Up the Trees. Paid $500,000 for this runner. It's Todd Pletcher, first-time starter with some breeding and a bullet workout. And Top Gun Rocket. Of those that have started, I thought the Riley Mott runner had shown a little bit of potential, at least number-wise. First couple of starts of the career were pretty good. Last time out, maybe not so much. But again, the numbers are pretty consistent. And of those that have run, seem to stack up. But it seems like a race where a first-time starter might step out and be intriguing. So for me in the 6th, 6, 5, 3, and 8.
We'll take a quick break. When we come back, more from Gulfstream Park.
And they're off in the Pegasus World Cup. They're off in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. And they're off in the Curlin Florida Derby. Forte wins. White Aborio almost home.
And Nyquist is still unbeaten. Orb and John Velasquez have won the Florida Derby.
Barbaro wins.
And there you have it. Northern Dancer will be the winner of the Florida Derby.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Welcome back. Race number 7, back on the synthetic. 5.5, fillies and mares in for 16.
1, 3, 6, and 7, Kavala on top. Again, it's one of those woodbine shippers coming down synthetic to synthetic. Last 2 starts, don't get my juices flowing. Obviously, that 1-2 back, but that seems like a complete draw line through race. But a little further down the page, and I'm hoping we get to that off a little bit of a layoff, a little short, little freshening. Mo Touring, the number 3 horse, Irad Ortiz on board for Mark Cassie, makes a lot of sense. This one, on the other hand, is in clearly better recent form, and that counts for something. So Mo Touring may be the one to beat. And then Flirtini in the 3rd spot. Lots of early speed, 3rd start back off a little bit of a layoff these days. So that's not a huge layoff from September to November, but does have some early speed that makes this one very, very intriguing and dangerous. In the 7th, 1, 3, 6, and 7.
8th race, optional claimers in mile and the 16th on the turf.
6, 4, 7, and 8. Cugino on top. I like the West Point runner in the career debut early in November up at Aqueduct. Shug runner got it done in a gutsy performance at 6-1, despite having a little bit of trouble in there. I'll look for this one to go back-to-back. Typhoon Fury. The Maiden Breaker 2-back was certainly good enough to contend in here. And the follow-up in the stakes race was okay. Stretched out to the mile there. The number went backwards a little bit, but I'm not in a concern and had some trouble in there. So again, off the past couple of races, Typhoon Fury, very intriguing for George Weaver, Mike Rapoli, and Randy Hill. And then Beyond Stoked in the third spot. Seemed to really get the wake-up call with the move to turf, and got a wake-up call that if this horse can repeat an effort like that, becomes very, very much a player in here. Cuban Thunder, I wasn't quite convinced with, but I did put that one down at the bottom of my mix. I started the career over in Europe, and then came over and tried the Breeders' Cup Juvenile on dirt, moved over to the synthetic last time and ran well. We'll see. I think the horse is interesting, particularly if you get the 8-1 price. In the 8th, 6, 4, 7, and 8.
9th race on the card, 3-year-olds, maiden special weights on the dirt, going a mile.
11, 2, 12, and 9. Causeway on top. Quality Road, first-time starter, but maybe more importantly, have potent connections with Chad and Juddmonte. And I just thought, there's a little bit of breeding here. Steady string of workouts, not jumping off the page, but I'll take a little pop with the connections at 8-1. Second slot, Conquest Warrior, going out for Shug, a City of Light, a second-time starter. So a little bit of interesting breeding there. Had a little trouble in the debut and still ran well. Should benefit from that and be a little bit tougher today. And then BU, it's a Mike Rapoli, Todd Pletcher runner. Went off as the favorite last time when returned to Maiden Special Company after they tried a couple of Grade 1 stakes with this horse. And as the favorite last time, just kind of tossed in a real clunker at Churchill. I'm going to look for this horse to get back on track here. But again, off the last race, I couldn't use the horse any higher up. But I'm going to be interested to see what BU does. And I'm going to be interested to see where the betting public goes as far as the odds on BU. But for me, 11, 2, 12, and 9.
Not usually interested in backstories, but I'd be interested to know why the stake didn't fill.
No.
I mean, it seems hard to imagine during the championship meet that the Sunshine Sprint couldn't fill to run for 70,000, 80,000. But there's no stakes race today at Gulfstream. There's terrific racing, but
that whole Sunshine thing is kind of fallen. It's hard to explain.
Right.
Today, I think they have a couple out in Santa Anita, and they have one tomorrow at Gulfstream. So it's not anything. For a while, it was kind of fun. Now it's.
Well, they used to take that week between the Super Bowl and the championship, right? Like January 20th. On to race number 10, 6.5 on the dirt, optional claimers.
5, 7, 2, and 1. Euphema on top. Lightly raced, but has shown a little bit of talent so far. But maybe more importantly, boy, that really nice bullet workout just over a week ago, I think says that she is on her toes and very live this afternoon. Socially Selective, 6-5 on the morning line. And maybe we'll live up to that for Bill Mott. I just couldn't quite pull the trigger off of the layoff, though. But certainly on the numbers, yes. And we'll see what this one does. But I just wanted one with maybe a little more recency. And then American, of course, with a lot of early speed, third start back off a layoff. I think this horse for Kathleen O'Connell becomes very, very intriguing in here. 5, 7, 2, and 1.
And to show you how latitude matters, 5:05 in the Capital District, it might be pitch black, but it's post time for race 11, 5 furlongs on the turf.
10, 5, 1, and 12. Flip side of that, of course, is they can't be playing golf at 9 o'clock at night in July. So I'll put the 10 on top. My Lady James, nice win, 2 back, third last time. Nice win, 3 back, nice third, 4 back, nice second, 5. So in other words, in really good form.
There's a theme here.
In really good form right now. And I just thought off of that good form, 8-1, I'm okay with that. Second spot, Kick a Rhyme, Mike Maker trainee that is relatively lightly raced, broke the maiden 2 back, jumped up to this company last time, ran okay, but I say it often. A lot of times it'll take these horses a start or two to figure out the next condition. So I think this one, with the experience of the condition under the belt, will move forward. And A La Breve in the third spot. Another one that just seems to be in good form. Not as good form as My Lady James, but good enough form to be a contender in with this group this afternoon. In the 11th and final, 10, 5, 1, and 12.
Well, there you have it. 11 race card at Gulfstream Park. Hopefully they'll have some outstanding weather, as it appears as if the NFL could be up against it in 2 spots.
I read tickets are going cheaply on some of the secondary markets.
It seems to me like, and I'm, there is no way as a fan you could attend these if any of these numbers are correct. I mean, not only the fact that the people say it's unsafe, how can it be any semblance of fun? And I'm going to tell you something. Our good
Particularly
friend
for the guy
Gene,
that we know we will see, who will be
the
shirtless with the paint. There will be one of those guys.
and there's usually 3 of them next to him. But our good friend Gene Kirsch, I mean, I'm texting him. I don't know if he's going. I mean, it does not seem like fun, but there will, as Seth said, there will be some people there that give the appearance of having fun. It's just not something I can connect with. And that's just show you.
They'll have a smile literally frozen on their face.
It's not because I'm 60. I felt the same way at 30. So it's not like, and I don't think I would have subscribed to it at 10 years of age, that this is fun. So we'll see how it plays out. The NFL has given no hint about moving anything. So I guess they're going to play Kansas City and Buffalo in some,
Frozen tundra.
Yeah, truly. He stays, I go. Up next, Racing Across America.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.